welcome to the Racers HQ podcast. I'm your host, Matt Murphy, and joining us on the line tonight is our faithful co-host, Pat Mulry. Pat, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I am doing well. I am happy to be indoors in a heated abode and not outdoors where I'd be freezing my tail off, because I think right now it's like -1 in Dallas with the wind chill. I'm sure up in OKC it's even worse.
Yeah. Shout out and thoughts and prayers to the folks outdoors and the outdoor cats. Not a good place to be right now. Hope you can find some shelter. Um, but yeah, no. Stayed at home last couple of days working and appreciate the flexibility.
Yeah, no
All
kidding.
right. Are you sipping on anything tonight, Mr. Mulry?
Yes, we have some Knob Creek bourbon juice tonight.
Oh, bourbon juice, a little apple juice, huh?
Yeah,
Knob
yep,
Creek.
some Knob
Well,
Creek, one of my go-tos.
I love it. I love it. We had sometimes when it's cold outside, my wife feels like it's time to do something tropical, right? Because kind of
Uh-huh.
helps put you in a different mindset, you're right, when you've been snowed in. So we
Little
went with
contrarian thing, sure.
so we went with Mai Tais. So
Nice.
what the listeners can't see is that I have a tiki mug and a piece of pineapple hanging off the side of it, and way too much rum. So we'll see how this show goes.
I don't know that that's possible, that it could have too much rum.
It might be close. Uh,
I do like the Trader Vic's style uh, porcelain ware.
yeah, no, we've got a whole selection of this kind of stuff here. If you ever want to come by, have a tiki drink,
Yeah,
we are well equipped.
something fruity. There was the the old Hilton in Dallas,
Hmm.
uh, which once it lost its flag, they threw it. They took down the N and put a P on it, and then it was the Hilltop as it fell into complete disrepair. Hiltop, because it's right by
Uh-huh.
SMU, and after it had fallen into disrepair, at some point along the way, I think this was before I ever moved to Dallas, they had a Trader Vic's at that when it was a Hilton.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And for the longest time, I don't think it's there anymore, but for the longest time, it had one of those, like, what were they, 10-foot or 12-foot tall tiki heads
Hmm.
outside the what had formerly been the Trader Vic's. I've been told by, old timers that that was really happening spot back in the day.
I bet.
And
We
I'd always hope. I have a friend who at one point, that hotel was owned by some guru,
mhm.
Maharishi or somebody like that, and the law firm he was working for, this is right after we got out of law school, was hired by the Maharishi to evict all of the squatters that had taken up residence in the Hilltop, so that they could, I don't know if it was to sell it or to try and remodel it or what. And I think maybe the tiki head went missing around then.
Uh,
Yeah, don't know what happened to it.
you got to watch out for your security posture during significant changes.
So I've heard.
Yeah. Well, fun. Yeah, that's a good story, Bus. Uh, so we've got drinks covered. You know what? We're gonna have a fun show tonight. We're so excited about this. You know,
Very big show.
all of our listeners said, we don't always care about racing. Sometimes it's important to talk about food too. So we're just gonna give it to you. The title of this episode is Demi-glace. But before we get into it, is that how you pronounce it, or is it Demi-glace? I
I think demi-glace. I don't
think
know. We're
Demi-glace.
Americans. We
Yeah,
ain't no French. We ain't no Frenchies round here.
yeah. My freedom sauce. Uh, but maybe it's freedom sauce. We'll see. We'll
I,
see how
I
this
think
pans
freedom
out.
sauce is just mayonnaise with ketchup, isn't it?
Oh, okay, okay. But before that, we have actually done some garage things. So, Maury, you were working on some complex stuff. Do you want to get into that, or talk about your garage experiences of late?
Yeah. Main garage experience of late with regard to Miku is that still trying to work out the running lean issues, and so I'm doing some rewiring and working through that, which is, you know, very tedious and
Mm-hmm.
detail oriented, and doesn't really lend itself to drinking on the job. I mean, not if you
Sure.
want, good outcomes. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's
Oh,
just been sitting at the table in the garage and splicing colors. And fortunately, our friend Ben Sutton was in town last weekend and for a couple days, not this past week, the week before, I guess the weekend before last. And so he was helping to put together kind of the matchup guide for what should go where. And so we got that
nice.
going, and then he left it to me to execute, which hopefully he's right on his planning and I'm right on my executing, and we'll get it all worked out. The goal, of course, is to have it ready sometime in, you know, late March. You try
Sure.
and get it out at ECR for some validation testing, and then to hal it for that race. I think the first weekend in May.
Sweet.
So that's the big goal.
All right, man. We're looking forward to it, and yeah, that's on my calendar as well. So, um, looking forward to Hallett.
Yeah, me too. Oh, one other not
Mm,
very big change with the car, but
mm,
a change to keep it rules compliant is
mm.
new harnesses, new seat harnesses. Ours
Oh,
expired at the end of 24.
okay.
So I replaced them with the same thing that were in there, except they're blue now instead of red because they didn't have red.
That's awesome. Yeah, be on the lookout for the E36 Tarp racing car with new blue harnesses. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, that's nice.
That's how
The
that's
new
how you'll know it in the photos from the last time that you
that
saw it.
2025 edition. Watch out.
That's right.
Yeah,
Blue racing
launch car.
harnesses. That's
Yeah,
right.
new livery. Well, that's cool, man.
How
Yeah.
about how about on the Miata of Dreams?
The Miata of Dreams. Yeah, no, it's doing well. It's pretty well buttoned up. I need to get a dyno test. I'm still hunting, fuel level cinder issues. I thought I had it sorted, but it doesn't change when I change the fuel level empirically. The fuel level on the dash does not change. So I'm going to take it all apart next. I'm going to pull the damn arm out of the fuel tank and fiddle with it and see if that changes it on the dash. But anyway, fuel level cinders are the dumbest thing, and I don't understand why they're not simple. The end.
Yeah, it shouldn't
Um,
be so difficult.
but in my virtual garage, we've been having some fun. I've been running that M2 car in iRacing quite a bit. It's the new rookie
Yeah,
car, and
yeah.
that is a blast. It's like touring car fun at the rookie level, and I like it. And I also did an enduro with Nate.
Did
So
you?
yeah, we did like 3 hours at Atlanta, and both crashed out horribly. I think we finished where we started, somewhere around 32nd place. But you know what? We didn't give up, and we had a good time. We got the big crash out of our systems. It was both, I think, coming out of the last corner there, and we were in the Ferrari and the Ferrari squirrely, and it just lets go. So that's fine though. I'm glad I got to spend some time with our old co-host Nate.
Yeah. Road
Quality
Atlanta is
time.
a fun track both in real life and virtually, but yeah, that is always a squeaky moment there if you're not real planted coming through 12.
Yeah, yeah. Something about the Ferrari. We didn't see. Looking back at it, not a lot of people running the Ferrari, and the NSX was way more stable from my testing. BMW probably. So might do some more testing before we hop into the next one and just assume that it will be easy.
Can
Um,
you or in that application are you allowed to jack around with downforce on the
oh yeah.
wing or splitter at all? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but we just didn't have enough testing in. We didn't do the nice, like, you need to do some long stints in testing to understand kind of the sweep of changes that you're going to experience. And we both crashed
Right.
out like 18th lap in our stint, right? Like just
Mhm.
when the tires were, such and such hot and the fuel was such and such low. And things were a changing.
Yeah.
We both totally lost it. So whatever, live and learn. But it was just fun. I
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't.
that's all. It's nice to go through like a virtual $750,000 of cars in a race.
Yeah, and I get zero care about my I rating or anything anymore. Like I used to get nervous and nah, like I'm gonna have some fun with this thing and move on. So
Yeah.
there we go.
Did you come up with a special livery or anything for the race?
Yeah, yeah, we did. It's pretty much like my car. It's black and yellow transition with some Racers HQ, and then I found an Adler motorcycle logo, which I hope wasn't owned by a Nazi, but we put that on the car, uh, and oh, and then I found like a Murphy's Oil. No, Murphy's Oil Company, not like Murphy's Oil, like the soap or cleaning
Yeah.
product or whatever, but
Yeah,
there's like a
Murphy Oil
Murphy.
Company. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they have like a logo, and so I just stuck that across the side of the
Mhm.
car. Just give it some Adler and Murphy look.
Yeah, Adler's a like there is a big like they're an actual Ferrari sponsor, I think,
They
in
are, yeah.
WEC, aren't they?
I think so. They are, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, used to be a motorcycle company. I think they're an engineering firm now, or
Yeah, I
I
think
think it
that's
might be
right.
Adler Works or something of that effect. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's just fun. I might do some more tomorrow. I think I took some vacay, so we'll see.
Were you able to get the like the wrinkles from the wrap in the livery too, or is that Miata only?
Yeah, no, that's a special edition livery for the Miata only, the Speed
Okay.
Wrinkles. So you only get that in one place. Um, but you got to come to the races to see it. Looks like
All right.
April 11th to the 13th is going to be the debut for the Miata down in Houston for the NASA race. So gonna go NASA
All
racing this
right.
year, come hell or high water.
In April, that is the switch up this year, isn't it?
I guess
Crazy. I
so.
wonder why. Wonder why they did
Hmm.
that. You
There's been
know?
a lot of changes to the NASA schedule this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but there we go. It's my birthday weekend, so come hang out.
All right.
Don't dox me now that you know my birthday and my first and last name. Oh no.
That's right. It's all over now.
I know.
Start
Dave's
getting
gonna steal
credit
my
card.
identity.
Yeah, start getting credit card offers for your home away from home in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Can't wait. Can't wait. I could use one. Well, let's move on, Pat. Let's get to the meat of the show. That the roasted meat involved in making demi-glace. Demi-glace.
Demi-glace.
Demi-glace. So
Yes.
we had some winter moments a couple of weeks ago. We haven't had a pod in quite some time, but we're having some winter moments and chatting quite a bit about cooking. And you had this crazy idea to make demi-glace. And I followed your lead, and I feel like it's something we can talk about, and it just expands into a whole culinary adventure. So,
It does.
good. Tell me a little bit about your why did you decide to go down this road? What did it involve? What lessons were learned?
So, a few years ago, Rachel and I were at a restaurant, and um, what was it? We had something with the appetizer. Oh, is that what it was? Rachel had the mussels, and they came with
Mm,
fries, and
mm,
then I was going to have the steak frites, which of course also comes with fries.
mm,
And our waiter suggested, well, maybe y'all don't want two helpings of French fries,
mm.
uh, but I think I could get the chef to make some mushrooms. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. Let's try that. And so he comes back with this bowl of, um, I don't know what kind of mushrooms they were, creminis
Mm.
or baby bellas, probably creminis. And the heck, they might have been buttons. Who knows? But whatever they were great because they'd been cooked in this demi-glace broth,
Mm. Yeah.
super thick, and they were just like, everything else was great, but those were just mind blowing. And so I was like, I should try and make this sometime.
Yeah.
And then I start looking up recipes for how you do that, and the demi-glace itself is like a 3-day process. Like, which makes sense if you're a professional chef kitchen where you can just you've got people that do that kind of stuff, and they can just have bones on the boil for 8 hours a day and skimming
Mm.
the foam off of it and all that while they're doing all sorts of other things. Um, for me, it made like no sense ever until around Christmas time, and had a few extra days off, and I was like, I think I'm going to give this a shot. So I went and got some bones. That's when you and I were talking about, I think. And so then, you roast the bones
Mm.
in the oven for a bit, um, and then you maybe you should go through the method. I think you've done it more recently than I did. You
Well,
boil
yeah, I mean,
them, right?
yeah, you're gonna roast the bones, and so I was taking a look at this picture I sent you. I went wild and really I didn't go just exclusively beef bones because I wanted to make sure that this thing had some
Right.
mouthfeel to it, right? Some collagen. So I got, we've got this wonderful Vietnamese mega store close to me called Super Cao Win, and so I went there and I had them give me a couple, let's say 3 or 4 pounds of beef bones, and then they run it through the band saw, so you get
Mm-hmm.
that the big chunk of marrow there, accessible. And then I bought a bunch of like duck wings and chicken feet, and then just some other just kind of like chuck that was cheap, just to give it some more beefy flavor.
Yeah.
So just trying to bring in all those flavors, and then you also do some vegetables on this. This is very much of a French
Right.
broth as opposed to like a Chinese stock, in that you're going to go ahead and bring in those vegetables fairly early. That's what I did, and then just roast the piss out of all that stuff for a long time. I mean, give it that caramelization. That uh, what is that? What I'm losing my word here.
The Maillard reaction.
Maillard reaction. Thank you.
Yes.
Um,
We're
you
all
knew
French.
exactly what I was talking about.
I knew exactly what you're talking.
And then, and yeah, and then boil. And then, like, I started with, I've got a giant stock pot. Like, it's industrial size, right? And
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many quarts it is, but it's all of them. And I stuck all
You
that
didn't.
stuff in that. I stuck all that stuff in there and like pretty much topped it off. And I think I did the bones for about 18 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then strained it all and then reduced that for another couple hours. Because you want this thing to be to like a half, if not a quarter, of the original liquid. You want this thing to be thick.
Right. So
And
you
it's,
kind of start off like basically making a beef broth, and then you just keep cooking it and cooking it and cooking it, and
yeah,
maybe add some more water to it at some point. So
yeah.
maybe I don't remember.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you might need to, you just got to maintain this thing. You want that. But yeah,
And
like,
then a roux go at some point. There's a roux that goes into it, right?
yeah, so you took that step. I did not take that step. But there's another stage in this, I think, in the official kind of like French recipe where you take a portion of that, or
Hmm.
maybe you already made demi-glace. It's a weird like the demi-glace makes the demi-glace kind of thing, but
It's like a sourdough bread.
right. But you make a roux, and I think you did this step, right? And then add it back to it to give it some more body.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's like you make the beef broth, and then use part of the broth to make an Espanol sauce.
Got
I'm
Espanol
probably
sauce, yes.
I'm probably mispronouncing that, right? But and then that I think that's where the roux comes in, and then that cooks for a while. Oh, and that was another thing you do is after you boil the bones the first time, then you can boil them again, and there's a French term for that too, so that you get like a
Mm,
secondary beef broth off of that. That's still awfully good.
okay.
Um, like you take the after you strained it out, you put the bones back in the pot, you
Mm,
cover them with water and your mirepoix all over again, and
okay.
then you get more stock out of that. So
Genius. That's
yeah,
smart.
and I was thinking about it one day when I was walking Gracie, probably in the middle of the multi-day demi-glace process, right? Because some of these things are like, okay, now boil it for like 8 hours and skim the foam off of it, and then
Hmm.
like cover it overnight or put it in the fridge and then start again the next day. I know ours was at least a 2-day process here,
Hmm.
um, with all the different steps. And I was just thinking, it's always funny. Like if you watch some of the like Top Chef or some of the cooking shows, and they'll like they'll use beef cheeks for something, or like
Hmm.
like salmon collar or something like that, right?
Hmm.
And which are like a lot of times parts of the animal that you can't really just go buy. Like
Hmm.
nobody stocks salmon collars, right? Salmon collars are like what's left over after you butcher out a salmon, and you've got the fillets that you're going to cook for like your normal dinners. You've got heads and collars and all that, and that's usually what like goes in to make like fish stock, right? And it's like, oh wait, maybe we can actually like do something with these things. And then all of a sudden somebody does it on like Top Chef, and then you get people who are like, oh, I want to have make something out of salmon collar. It's like you
Yeah.
can't buy salmon collar. But it was just the chefs being inventive with something that otherwise was going to get chucked or barely
Yeah.
used. And it's always amazing to me, like when you see like commercial kitchens, and they're like, yeah, we're not throwing any of that stuff away. Like,
Yeah.
our we're not using like actual onions to make this. We're using the peels that we and the skins that we, can't use otherwise. Those go into a bag and go into the freezer or something. And then, those and the ends of leeks and like offcuts from carrots and
Yeah.
carrot peelings
I
and stuff like that.
100% do that, by the way. I've got the bag in the freezer, so I make all my
So
stocks.
smart.
100%.
It's so smart. Um, because it's like it's free food is what it is,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Um, so you went through all this process, and then you finally made your mushroom
Finally made the mushrooms. Yep.
dish.
They were pretty good, but they weren't as good as the ones in my memory, But
Okay.
I think that's pretty natural, right? But gosh, I mean, so much demi-glace. Like,
Yeah.
just I think we put it in maybe 8-ounce plastic things that we got at the store
Okay.
instead of because we were like, okay, we'll use it. If it's in 8-ounce quantities, we'll probably use that, right? Like
Hmm.
for a thing. And I didn't want to do, what I like the idea, and I think it's what you did with some of it at least, to like freeze it into cubes, right? So then you can just throw a couple cubes in here or there. But
Yeah.
because of the way our freezer was kind of stocked, that wasn't really going to work for us very well. So,
Yeah. I had purchased a whole kit, maybe like 6 to 8 of those ice cube sets with the silicone
hmm
bases, so that you can just
hmm
pop them right out, and they've got lids on them too. I got all that on Amazon for probably $16. And that
uh,
has been perfect because they just pop right out, and yeah, I was able to basically fill up that whole kit full of.
and so they just live in those then in the freezer until you
Yeah,
need
I
them.
didn't even bother putting them in another bag or something, right? I mean, yeah, they just live
Yeah,
in
no,
those in the
that's a great
freezer.
idea. We just didn't have room to be able
Yeah,
to do that, and I didn't want to have to like rebag it, and then
sure.
for some weird reason, most of the time a demi-glace will set up, if you just put it in a
Hmm.
container and put it in the fridge, right? Because all
Hmm.
the collagen in it. But for some reason, my demi-glace didn't
Hmm.
do that, and so it
Hmm.
stayed pretty. I mean, it was very viscous, but it wasn't like gelatinous like
Mm.
you usually see.
Need
Um,
more
so
duck wings,
yeah, maybe that would do it.
chicken feet.
Definitely would do it.
Yeah. Um,
So what
what
what have you
else?
been using your demi-glace
Yeah.
cubes for?
So the first attack was steak. So I think I had steak
That's
like
right.
on the menu, and I think we were doing fillets. It's kind of a classic, maybe for Christmas or something.
Mhm.
We got a great meat market down here called Rhett's, that has the good steaks, um, and so I did it. I used it for a red wine reduction sauce after searing the steaks and butter basting them, and I will say I even used a hack. I've been doing a lot of Chinese cooking, and I was concerned about this, but I gave it a shot. I gave it a little bit of a cornstarch wash,
Oh, yeah.
and I'll tell you, I liked it because it's kind of a hack because you want to sit there forever and like try to reduce this thing down to a
Right.
gel. It's never going to get to the consistency you want. It's still going to be a little watery, especially like at heat. So you add that cornstarch to it, And the nice thing about it is it sticks to the steak, right? Like you get so
Mm,
much more of that flavor. Like think about the volume of
yeah.
sauce that you get to keep on the steak, and that with the demi-glace was amazing. Like the flavor is so intense, and my wife is a very critical muse, and she loved it. She loved it. So yeah, that was a win out of the gate. Was the steak sauce, and I had made that steak sauce a million times. I had just not used demi-glace or
Yeah.
the cornstarch, and it was a win.
So it's like, was that like a au poivre sauce?
Um, I suppose it wasn't. No, it wasn't like of pepper. It was more. That's my understanding of au poivre.
Yeah.
But no, this is just more of your red wine steak sauce that you would make
Okay. I
after
got you.
deglazing the cast iron.
Yeah.
Maybe a pat of butter in it, but this time I
Hmm.
added some demi-glace and cornstarch.
So with the, did you put the cornstarch in like as a slurry first, or did you just throw the
Yeah.
cornstarch in straight?
No, as a slurry later on, like
Okay.
after reducing down, and that demi-glace will reduce down, and we'll get into that in another recipe. But I mean, it will reduce down into a goo pretty quickly because it's already so thick,
Right.
right? So it doesn't take much. But with the red wine and everything else I had kind of tossed in there, the cornstarch really helped kind of thicken it up. Um, Other things I've made since then: short rib French onion soup with the
Mm.
demi-glace to braise the short ribs, and then clearly to use as the soup base. And again, just like the most intense flavor. And then
Let me ask you a question
yeah.
about your about that. When we make French onion soup, one of the things that I find uh, disappointing is it always comes out too sweet,
Mm,
and I have not yet found an onion that I attribute that to the onions, right?
mm-hmm,
Because
mm-hmm,
onions have that sugar in them, and so of course you don't want to use like Vidalias or Texas sweet onions or whatever because there's going to have. So last time we made it, I tried to just use like regular white onions, and I thought, well, this
mm-hmm,
is going to have to work, right?
mm-hmm.
Still way too sweet.
Hmm. I wonder what you could do. 'Cause so I first of all think that you just lack the sophisticated palate to understand that a French onion soup should be sweet. It's caramelized onions.
I mean, that's true, but like a lot of times, when I get if I have a French onion soup when I'm out and about on the
Mm-hmm.
town.
Mm,
uh, I don't think I ever had French onion soup when I was actually in France, but we were there in the summer, so it might have been
mm-hmm.
hard to get. Heck, I don't even know if the French eat onion soup. Maybe that's been a wool
Yeah,
pulled over our eyes by the French Onion Soup Association. But when I buy it commercially for digestion, it's
sure.
not it's not sweet like that. It's not
Okay.
bitter. It's just darker flavored, um, and this is all. It's always just more sweet, and it's not like we're adding any sugars to it. I mean, you're right. We're cooking down the onions, but I wonder if I'm missing a trick in there somewhere to get it more, because it certainly gets peppered, but not. It's like there's so much sweetness to it that I can't get away from it.
Do you think that maybe it needs to go just in that next level over to where the sweet starts to get maybe burned out of it or something, in kind of a Maillard reaction or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly cook those onions down for an awfully long time to get them really dark and brown. But maybe you're right. Maybe I need to get them to the point where they're almost scorched.
Hmm. I asked the internet, by the way. The French do eat French onion soup.
Oh, do they?
Hmm. They
Hmm.
call it onion soup. Um,
That's very Norm Macdonald of you right there.
but yeah, no, I agree. It is sweet. It is sweet, and you do become impatient. So, but I will
Yeah,
say,
you can't become impatient. I mean, you got to know that you're going to be there, like just cooking onions down for like 3 hours.
yeah,
Like, You
Yeah.
start with this, and it's always the weirdest thing. Like you start with like an entire like Le Creuset, pot full of onions,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
brimming to the top, and at the end you've got like about a glue stick worth of onions after
Yeah.
they cook all the way down.
Oh, it is fascinating. I like it. Thyme is my favorite ingredient. Thyme with an I, not the herb, but thyme is my
Yeah.
favorite ingredient, And this, I mean, this demi-glace, that kicked like because I've made ramen recently,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and this is like double making ramen from a
Oh
time.
yeah.
I mean, this is next level French cooking, so I really appreciated the challenge. It was awesome. Um, so I sent you this the other day, Pepin's potato balls. So Jacques Pepin, which I've got his cookbook, and he's an awesome chef,
Yes.
or
Yep.
rest in peace, I believe. Big,
I believe you're
uh,
right.
yeah, but big deal French chef bringing that to the states. But yeah, so he had these potato balls I found. So you just kind of like blanch. You scoop out potatoes with a like an ice cream scooper, or more of a dough scooper. Anyway, and you blanch them,
A
and then
disher,
use, huh? Yeah,
a disher.
a disher. Then you saute them in butter, and then right at the end you toss in a couple of your couple tablespoons of your demi-glace, and that stuff immediately becomes like this gooey sauce
Uh-huh.
covering your potato balls and your pan-seared potato balls. It's good.
So it
Um,
would
mhm,
appear, according to Wikipedia, that
mhm.
Chef Pepin is still with us.
Oh, Jean Pepin is still with us.
Yes,
Oh, I'm so glad.
he is a older fellow. He is 89 years old.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, you just
Yeah.
made my day. And then finally, my last point is pot roast, because you asked, what am I using it for? Pot roast.
Yeah.
But anytime you're going to braise meat or make a meat sauce, it's just the best thing.
Mm-hmm. So it
And
went into the sauce for the pot roast.
about half of my braising liquid was, I mean, I put a couple, call it 4 to 6 ice cubes full of, you know, uh, demi-glace in there,
Yeah.
with some other beef broth, because I just make broth all the time. You talk about using everything. If I'm seeing some things, I'm making lobster broth. I'm making shrimp broth. I don't care. Nothing's going to waste, Maury.
All the broths.
I did get rejected by my muse. The chicken and lobster broth, when just presented as just use it as broth, it didn't. It wasn't well received. So not everybody's down for the mixy up broth. They want
So you
their.
you cooked them together.
I like it. It's very flavorful.
I'm sure.
I mean, for like a dumpling soup where you're gonna have, maybe you'll have some. I don't know if you ever make dumpling soup at the house, but it's the easiest and best thing in the world. But if you want a complicated Chinese broth and you want to toss a few frozen dumplings in there and, you know, set the timer to 6 minutes,
Yeah.
it's the best. But if you want
A
something
little
that's
bit of, maybe a
specifically,
little bit of star anise just to spice things up.
maybe, or like typically you go in with a couple of different types of soy sauce. You get your light, your dark soy sauce, a splash of some sesame seed oil, you know. There's some mushroom broth powder I like to toss in there. It gives it a little that MSG twang. Chicken broth powder. Don't
Have you
forget
ever
your
just
MSG.
have you ever just used the like the dried shiitake powder just to
Yeah,
give it
I
a
don't
little
know. I think that's probably pretty good. Yeah, I think it's probably close to my mushroom broth powder, but I think you
Mhm.
might be onto something that's more exciting. Um, I need to get some of that too.
That stuff is you talk about fine ground.
Hmm.
Um, not that I've ever been around moon dust
Hmm.
in my real life, but reading about moon dust and like how fine that stuff was, and like got everywhere on the astronauts'
Hmm.
um, uh, suits in a way that they weren't expecting, like just filthy with it because it was so fine.
Hmm.
Ground shiitake powder is about that fine. Like you can't close the bag without
Hmm.
some of that just like escaping into the air. It's about as fine a dust as I've ever seen.
Okay.
So also, if you're going for maybe a moon dust recreation for
Mm.
diorama for school,
Okay.
or for diorama day at work, I assume others have diorama day at work. Mushroom
Yeah.
powder might be a suggested alternative. Just
Never
don't
had
sneeze near it,
diorama.
because then it'll be everywhere.
Yeah. Never had diorama day at work, but I'm glad that you have such an exciting career, Mr. Maury.
Well, you should bring that to your office. Like
Okay.
suggest it for like March 3rd will be diorama day. Just put up posters. Like just put up some flyers around the office.
Hmm.
A very guerrilla art campaign that way, and then see if anyone actually brings in a diorama.
Okay. Okay. Challenge accepted. Okay, moving on. You know what else you get? Oh, this is gonna be a great segue. You ready for this, Maury?
I am ready. I am
You
ready.
know what else you get after making demi-glace? Demi-glace beef tallow, or whatever the heck animals you stuck in there in the first place tallow.
Right.
But it's pretty darn good. So then you can,
Yeah.
fry your steaks in it, or your French fries, or I mean, snout to tail, Maury. We're using the whole
No, you're
thing.
right. I'd forgotten about that, and that was definitely something I had to like twice drain the. So backing up, the first step of the demi-glace is you take those bones and you roast them in the oven for like an hour or
Hmm.
two on a some sort of rimmed pan, because they're going to leach out all of that, a whole lot of fat,
Hmm.
and then it's all clarified. That's your tallow right there. So
Hmm.
you pour that off, and yeah, I've got like 3 of those 8-ounce containers just from that. And you're right, that is spectacular stuff. I
Yeah.
don't think we've made a roux with that, but I bet that would be great for making
Ooh.
a roux.
Yeah.
In
That's
fact,
what's up.
it'd be really good for making the roux that you put into your sauce espagnole as you're making your demi-glace.
Guys, we're just recycling at this point.
Boom.
Boom. Somebody take note of that. Dave, take note of that idea.
Text that back to me, Dave.
Okay, so here's the segue. So we're talking about tallow. You're drinking some whiskey. You also tried some other things
That's right. That was another
related to
holiday.
whiskey and fat. I got inspired. We have a local restaurant here that has a seasonal drink that involves some fat washed bourbon, and I've been
Yeah.
enjoying that. But I brought that up, and Maury ran with it. So, Maury, what was your experience with fat washed bourbon?
So I tried 2 different fat washed bourbons. So basically what you do is you take for example, butter, and you
Mm,
saute about, 3 or 4 tablespoons of butter. It's not really very much. And
mm,
kind of brown it a little bit,
mm,
and then you pour that um into some whiskey in this case. I'm sure you could do it with any number of alcohols. I don't think you'd want like, brown butter gin. That sounds kind of disgusting, but maybe it's
yeah,
great.
thumbs down. Yeah.
Um, but tequila might work also, especially like an aged tequila. But it
Yeah.
definitely worked with the whiskey, and so then you just kind of leave it. I shook it up real good. So I tried one of them with just one recipe was just like grated butter. So like
Hmm.
take your stick of butter and put it on the cheese grater and grate that up and put it in a mason jar with, like I think half a bottle of whiskey maybe.
Hmm.
And that didn't work quite as well. It didn't
Hmm.
seem to pick up quite as much of um, the the fat.
Hmm.
And then the other one I did, I think the other one was I melted some of the tallow and put that in and shook it up real good in a mason jar.
Hmm.
And that worked a little bit better. Um, and then did a brown butter one
Hmm.
with rye, um, to try to use that in some Rittenhouse rye to use for like making Manhattans.
Hmm.
And of all of them, so what the fat washing does is it adds a little bit of flavor, um, and a little bit of texture, or takes away
Hmm.
a little bit of texture maybe. Like it just kind of smooths out the alcohol a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then you strain out the fat before you use the liquor. So after it sits in there for a few days, you run it through a fine strainer or some cheesecloth or something, so that you don't have any of the solids in the liquor, and then put the liquor in a wash the bottle or put it back in or whatever.
Hmm.
And the tallow was the least successful of the experiments. It didn't flavor it at all.
Mm.
Um, changed the texture just a little bit, but it wasn't like it. I wouldn't even bother doing that again.
Yeah.
The grated butter worked really well, actually, um, but was really gross as it sat there on the countertop, like just because it's like a pile of like you know grated cheese looking butter in whiskey. It looked like it was weird looking, but it worked really well. Like it flavored it really well, and then the browned butter worked the best in the rye. Um, but then and so we had several cocktails over the Christmas time holidays involving that. We didn't use all of it, and it went into the cabinet for a few weeks, and then I guess it was last weekend I pulled out one of them and made a Manhattan with it, and it had turned rancid.
Oh no.
Um,
Okay.
and I was surprised because I was like I didn't anticipate that at all with the alcohol, right?
Hmm.
But like the first sip, it didn't like make me sick, but I was like, this isn't right. Like
Gotcha.
this just doesn't taste right. And, poured it out and then made a proper drink. So I would say if you make the fat washed alcohol,
Hmm.
you should probably use it in. I'm not saying like you got to drink it all that day, but don't plan on it, being able to sit on the shelf for weeks and weeks,
Yeah.
maybe.
No, it's good to know. It's good to know. Yeah.
At least that's my experience. Someone might come along in the comments and just tell me I'm full of it, and
Oh yeah.
they might be right.
That's very possible. Yeah, we get a lot of interaction. Um, well, good. Well, I'm glad that you were able to. I really do appreciate you taking one for the team and trying the tallow. I think I probably promoted that in the chats
You
and
did. You
and
did.
I didn't bother doing that. I would I can't afford to waste whiskey, but you can. So thank you for trying that.
There's no such thing as wasting whiskey when you're experimenting with it. I
There
mean,
you go. There you go. We're learning. I like this.
that's right. It's for the sake of science. If there's anything we've
It
learned,
is.
it's follow the experts, right?
That's right. Um, well, that's all I have. That's all I have. That's the end of the show, Maury. That's it.
That's it for Demi-glace night.
That's it for Demi-glace night. But I highly recommend it, children. Go buy yourself a whole bunch of bones from your local store. Find the gnarliest store you can find that just sells a bunch of bones and stuff.
Yeah.
And cook that down for a whole day.
Open up your yellow pages to the bones and stuff page
Mm-hmm.
and see if you can get just the bones and not the stuff.
Mm. You need a little bit of stuff. You need some stuff to get some flavor on there. You don't want just, you
Well, it
know.
depends what the stuff is, right? I mean, if it's the meat on the bones, okay. But if it's like, axle grease,
No, you don't want axle
that stuff.
grease.
No.
No, no. But trotters, any any animal that we eat on a normal basis, their feet. You want to buy some of those,
Yeah.
put that in there.
I read an interesting article the other day about it was actually talking about robots, like those kind
Mm.
of dog size or dog shaped
Yeah.
robots that terrify all of us.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that those can't work off road because they need a flat, reliable
Hmm.
surface.
Hmm.
And then they've started experimenting putting um cloven hooves on the robots. And
Hmm.
one of the things it said is that I couldn't imagine. This blew my mind that moose hooves,
Hmm.
like they expand their footprint when they're in like muddy ground.
Okay.
Like I figured those things were just bones. Like you're not expanding, bone, but apparently, like they're not. They're an assembly of bones, and so they can make their foot wider when they're in gnarly conditions.
Nice.
So watch out. You may need a bigger pot than you think if you're using trotters.
That's right. Go to your local restaurant supply store and buy a giant stock pot and then build a kitchen around it.
That's right. I had
Yeah.
to get a bigger stock pot for this experiment because the big one that I had was a big aluminum one, and when we put in that induction cooker
Huh.
when we redid the kitchen a few years ago, it's like, yeah, this doesn't work on the induction cooker.
Bwah, bwah.
Yeah, so
All
it
right.
was a
Well,
trip
we
to
got,
Home
mhm,
Goods.
yeah. Yeah. Um, I think we covered a lot here, Maury. Hit us up in the chats if you're like, hey, man, that cooking show, that really hit the spot. And we want more of that because we could talk more about cooking. I don't know.
That's
I
right.
mean, I've been I've been going down this whole rabbit hole of this one dish called pad krapow, and I have tried it 8 different places in town and made it several times at my house, and I'm even growing a special varietal of basil to try to make it in its most original format. So
So what is this dish? I'm gonna guess it's Thai from the
it's Thai, yeah.
that's basil and has the word pad in it. But what is it?
It's your basic basil stir fried meat. I mean, if you were to mix the rice and the thing together, it would be like basil fried rice. But typically, it's ground beef or ground pork or ground chicken, just kind of whatever leftover meat you have, with a kind of mortar and pestle of garlic, shallots, Thai bird peppers, and then all of the basil you can find, kind of stir fried together, and then like a crispy fried egg on top.
Hmm,
But
sounds delicious.
yeah, no, there's this guy. He's got this YouTube channel OTR. I've been watching too much of it, and he just does these deep dive history of food things, and he claims that this should be the national dish of Thailand, not pad Thai, but that this is like your basic. This is what the miners ate. This is how they fed the people when the industrialization happened, and it's the most popular dish in Thailand apparently. So
Hmm.
I've tried it, 6 different places around town. I've got my opinions,
Of course you
but
do. And how does your homemade version
mine's the
compare to
best. Mine's
the?
the best by far. Yeah, there's no because everybody tries to listen. You don't need a bunch of goo on this thing. Like that like Chinese American food where there's
Yeah.
like it's goop and it's like unimpressive onions and pepper and bell peppers or something. Like you're just trying to
Right.
fill the thing up. I don't want any of that. Like the only goop you need is fish sauce, which makes this even more amazing, right? Like
Yeah.
lime juice and fish sauce
Yeah.
and basil and Thai peppers and garlic. Yeah, these are the flavors that I want.
Maybe some mushroom powder.
Boom! Just make sure you have a high-tech spacesuit, not like that janky 60s stuff
No,
with all
you
the
need a real
holes
high
in it.
tech one. That's right.
Yeah. We can do this all night, Maury. We can talk
That's
food.
right. That's
We're
right.
good at eating
It's
food.
it's Racers HQ Umami Hour.
The umami hour. That could be like an ASMR pod. It's the umami hour. Yeah. How many microns wide is a mushroom powder molecule?
That's right.
I don't know if that's not using the right words. Anyway,
Why not?
what's next, Maury? So you're gonna finish up this wiring job, and we're gonna get out on the
Yeah.
racetrack, huh?
Hopefully I'm gonna get this wiring job finished up maybe this weekend. I mean, it is, normally when I go out in the garage, it's like just, hammer away until there's, you know, until you run out of time, and then go
Yeah,
back in the next day and hammer away till you run out of time. And but this is such a detail oriented, focused, complete OCD job that, like, I find at points I'm like, okay, I need to take a break because I'm just like exhausted, thinking about, tracing
yeah,
this wire, or, like, um, I did the um, fuel injector harness separately, and then, and continuity checking it, like, every step along the way, just to make sure,
man.
which seems a little ridiculous
Hmm.
until, you're like, well, but I don't want to have that be a question. Like, did all this, really
Yeah.
get wired up right? Well, we've passed continuity on it, at 3 different stages, including, from at the very final. So at least we don't have that, and that's really the toughest part. Um, is
Yeah.
is just keeping all that focused and doing all that. But then I'll get to the point where I'm like, my brain's just, shot at like, you know, I'll start at 9 in the morning. It'll hit 9:30. I'm like, okay, I'm done for the day, even though
Yeah.
I've got, like 4 hours of time left because I just can't think anymore. And so then, I just like go to the gun range and burn off
Mhm.
some ammo, which is
Nice.
fun in a completely different way.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that harness work is real work. Like, if you're looking at buying a harness for something and it's, thousands of dollars, that's what it takes. I mean, unfortunately, whether you do it yourself or pay somebody to do it, it's that kind of money and that kind of hours. So good for you, Mulry. It's an exciting process,
It
and
is an exciting process, and I think I think it'll bear fruit. I hope it'll
yeah,
bear fruit for us, and
yeah.
because that car's just good. Yeah, I mean, in the limited time we had it on track, it's fun to drive.
Oh,
It's
it's a
always been fun
hoot.
to drive, but now it's a little bit more svelte than it was before, and it's more fun to drive.
Mo fun. I'm digging it. Yep. I uh I found a local dyno shop that seems like they want to play ball. I could probably get my car dynoed for $100,
Hey,
but
that's good.
it's got to be over 40 degrees outside. And if I'm thinking strategery, I probably want it to be pretty darn close to 100 degrees because, like 40 degrees seems like that's going to add some performance, right?
Right.
Denser air. So,
Hmm.
we'll see. But yeah, need to go get my car dynoed. Then we'll go run it at NASA. That's all I got. You know what, guys? Like and subscribe, rate and review. Check us out, racershq.com. We'll see you at the track.
We're in the
Good night, Dave.
Good night, Dave.
Good night, Dave.